said, wait a minute, that's not a man.
Hi everybody, this is Bill, one of the Cryptid Brothers, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and thank you so much for clicking on tonight's episode. It's a great episode. It was a real treat to interview a great lady that called us out of the state of Oklahoma. So it's always a treat to interview a fellow Oklahoman. Her name is JL. She's a retired semi-truck driver. She drove professionally for years, and a few years ago, she had a very terrifying encounter in southeast Oklahoma while she was driving alone on a desolate road, a very wooded area, not too far from where we hunt. So, before we jump into that crazy, terrifying episode, there's just a few things I want to say, and one is, please watch out for a big announcement that Lance and I are going to have in regards to the future of our channel. It's important that you listen to that. If you like our content, if you like what we do, please listen to that next episode. We're going to post that here probably in the next handful of days. Some good news is that we actually have a Twitter account now. So if you have a Twitter, please follow us. Our Twitter profile is twitter.com/cryptidof. That's cryptid of. So it's imperative that you follow us if you like what we do. If you want to continue to access our content, please go to Twitter and follow us. And if you have a Facebook, do that as well. So we'll try to provide some links here in this episode to that, to those platforms. So again, please look out for the set down that we're going to have, the announcement that Lance and I are going to have in regards to the future of the Cryptid Brothers investigations of Oklahoma. It's important that you listen to that. So we'll get going with the episode. Again, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, for sharing. It means a lot. And have a great evening. Enjoy tonight's episode. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, JL, for calling in. We really appreciate you doing so. And take it away and tell us about your encounter.
Thanks for listening to me, Bill. I'm glad I got someone to share it with.
Absolutely.
That, gets it.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
I'm 62 years old. I grew up in Idabel, Oklahoma, McCurtain County, and around the Broken Bow, Oklahoma area. I just retired this year after 17 years as a professional truck driver. I've been all over the United States. I've covered a lot of territory, night and day, and through all sorts of weather. When I was a teenager, there were stories here and there around this part of Oklahoma that you'd hear how fishermen or hunters had experienced a sighting back then, and even today, which they call the BIGFOOT. And not until I was 55 years old, I was driving for a trucking company out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. I had spent 2.5 days off the truck after being out 2 weeks at my sister's house, and it was that somewhere around March the 27th. I've got it noted. In 2010, dispatch had called me that Friday morning and told me that my load was ready. It was a preloaded trailer. I had a empty trailer attached to the semi truck down here in Idabel, and so I told dispatch, okay, I'll start heading that way. It's on a Friday. I don't have to do it to Birmingham, Alabama until Monday, so I had plenty of time. Now, it being towards the end of March, the weather was already nice. The spring rains were starting. Not heavy rains, light rain. It wasn't freezing cold. There was no coolness in the air. The spring was actually here, and it was warm weather. So anyway, I left Idabel and proceeded to head towards Broken Bow on 259 Highway North. I came through Broken Bow, and I'm not in a hurry. I had plenty of time to get to Fort Smith. I'm going to drop my empty trailers, hook to my trailer that's already loaded, and I've got the entire weekend to get to Birmingham, Alabama for Monday morning, 10 a.m. The normal route from where I was at would be 259 North through Broken Bow, up the mountains, down the mountain, over Talamina Drive, the second mountain, and down to Poto, over to Fort Smith. And from there, I would go to Memphis, Tennessee, on the Interstate 40. From Memphis, I would take the Highway 72, which goes down across the northern part of Mississippi, and then over into Alabama. Birmingham, once you're there in Alabama, it's not far to take the I-65 south to Birmingham. So it was a good run. And I got to Broken Bow and through Broken Bow. I'm going to say it was probably about somewhere between 9:30. There wasn't a whole lot of traffic going 259 north. And as I left Broken Bow, you start to climb further into a higher elevation towards what's called Three Sticks at the top of the mountain. And the population starts in and out, the little towns and stores and what have you. And I wasn't in a hurry. There was two cars that passed me southbound, going towards Broken Bow. There was one car that passed me going north that came around the semi-truck and passed me and was gone. I was enjoying the scenery. Many times we just enjoy our scenery, our ride, and we look around. And as I got to a certain creek, I don't want to mention the creek because people may flock to that area and it'd be chaos. We all know that. But there's a certain creek. I had slowed the semi down right before the bridge to almost an idle. And as I came, there were some bushes at the edge of the bridge. As the front part of the truck had cleared this bushy area, it wasn't large, but as it cleared it, I decided to look to my right instead of my left. I looked to my right, and the first thing I said was, "What's that man doing wearing a heavy coat?" And then all of a sudden, and the mind works quick, in a split second, I said, "Wait a minute, that's not a man." And by that time, I've got the truck down to just an idle. I seen it take, and it wasn't in the center of the river. It was more so over towards the bank. The rains had not filled up the rivers or the creeks yet. and there was rocks that was protruding out of the riverbed, the creek bed.
Right.
I seen it take 3 steps and then stop, and it stood there perfectly still like it was a tree. It did not move. And I'm just taking it all in because I realized this is not a man. Because at first I said, what's that man doing wearing a heavy coat? Because of the weather, there was no need for it. And then in a split second, I realized, wait a minute, that's not a man. And of course, when I said, what's that man doing wearing a heavy coat? Also, the mind works real fast, and I was thinking that's also a very big man, a large man. But then all of a sudden, in an instant, just in a second, my mind said, wait a second, the eyes, my eyes. I realized this isn't a man. And I remember shouting that out vocally. And by that time, I'm idling across the bridge, and I'm looking straight down at it. And I had seen it as I had come onto the bridge. I seen it take 1, 2, 3 steps and then stop, and just stood perfectly still as if though it was a tree. And I was looking at it, and its face, the body was facing straight due west. And as I idled across the bridge, and in those semi-trucks, you have very large windows. And from my driver's seat, I was leaned way over towards the passenger side. Leaning over, looking down at it. It wasn't moving when I initially seen it, and I was looking straight at its face. Its body frozen, facing west towards the bridge, but as I'm going across, its head, which it's not much of a neck, I would say, but the thing is massive. But its face I could see, and its head would turn, and its sight was directly to inside the cab of the truck. I'm looking at it. I'm leaning over. If a human beings down in that riverbed creek, they would have seen me looking down at them. They'd been able to see up into that huge cab of that semi-truck, the window.
Right.
Because my seat, was up as well. It's not like, being in a vehicle. And basically, I idled across the bridge until the front cab part of the semi-truck got towards the end of the bridge where I lost sight of it. And as I got to the other side of the bridge, and then, I still had a little bit of the trailer still hanging on the bridge. The truck was off the bridge by then. I had stopped. And I thought to myself, oh, my God, I've seen it. Because this goes back to where I grew up around here as a teenager, and occasionally every once in a while, you would hear some other teenager, someone in high school, someone in junior high, one of your friends say, I had an aunt or an uncle or a cousin that claimed that they seen such, a Bigfoot. Of course, that was way back then. And so by the time I got to the other side of the bridge, I had stopped, and I said, oh, my God, I've seen it. And I started to put the truck in reverse. But then all of a sudden, I realized, wait a second, I'm the only one up here. I had not heard a car, no vehicle. I'm the only one, and total fear gripped me. Total fear. And I put the truck in drive, and I just left. And I went on.
Wow.
And I would like to tell you,
yes,
that I was in total shock. I was traumatized. This is amazing. I mean, I think that it would have been far worse for me if I hadn't heard about Bigfoots when I was a teenager growing up. But my mind kind of said, put a cushion there, because it says, you were told about these things when you was a teenager, a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just that I'd never seen it with my own eyes. I was able to function, doing my job.
Right.
I got that trailer up there. I picked the next load up. And, of course, I had the entire weekend to get that load to Birmingham. But this is how it affected me. It's traumatizing. It's shocking. Whenever I'd stop at a truck stop along the way to Birmingham,
yeah,
I couldn't say anything to anybody. And you might ask, what do you mean? Well, I'd go into a truck stop and I just kind of look at people. But I couldn't carry on a conversation. It was just, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like I just seen something that you don't know. I know I'm still a part of society, the civilized world people, but
right.
I have just witnessed and seen something that y'all just don't know. My knowledge of, everything all of a sudden just expanded. And it's like, people don't realize. And I just couldn't talk to nobody. It's not that I didn't want to. It's just that it wouldn't come out. How are you going to talk to anyone and say, how are you going to explain that to people? And they're carrying on, listening to their music, doing their job, buying DVDs, whatever, or on their phones. And I'm just looking at everybody living their life, in their normal world. And all of a sudden, my normal world has been turned upside down and, totally expanded out. It's just like, an instant surge of energy, knowledge. You got to understand it now. You witnessed it with your own eyes. There was like a disconnect between me and everybody else. But yet, I'm still a part of that civilized world and that society, but it was shocking. And this went on for over 30 days until during some of my trips, then I started, striking up conversation with other truck drivers, because really basically trucking is a culture in a lot of ways, to live the trucker's life. We've all got this camaraderie. And so from there, I found out, I heard some of the other truck drivers, a truck driver story too.
Well, let me ask you, JL, when this happened, you were driving over the bridge, and you said it took the 3 steps and then froze. Could you see its eyes just following you?
Yes. Yes. The head turned. Its eyes were zeroed in to the inside of the cab of the truck where I was at. I want to let you know this. I don't think this is my imagination, but when I locked my face with its face,
yeah,
I had this overwhelming telepathic feeling, and it said, "Leave us alone." I know it's not my imagination, but it's as if though it was telling me telepathically, "Leave us alone. Do not hunt us. We belong to the forest." It was like
That's amazing.
That was very powerful.
Absolutely. Like you said, just telepathically, you just felt it in your psyche that's what it was trying to communicate to you as it was just staring you down as you passed over the bridge.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's amazing.
It has changed my world, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
of all the places that I've traveled, night and day, through the fog, or, not very much because it's dangerous driving in the fog, but you might get caught in it sometimes, and you have to get someplace safe to park. But through all sorts of weather, heavy rains, tornado season, winter, snow, ice, you name it. It changed me because I don't look, as I'm traveling, at the forest the same way. I had always heard, stories back then, but to actually physically see it, the Bigfoot creature, the Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, in the physical world with your own eyes. I don't look at the forest the same way. I don't look at the forest the same way. I don't look at the trees. I look past the trees, next to the trees, in the shadows.
Right. Because now you're a knower. You know they exist based on your own eyewitness account, obviously.
I started doing a little bit of my own research after that happened. Not to the point of, total obsession, because I have had a job as a professional truck driver, which is very time consuming, and it takes up all your time. But I'm just saying, in my travels, I did not look at things the same way. I did not look at the forest the same way. I got a lot of family that hunts, they fish, they camp, and I've told them, you have to be careful. We know that civilization in the entire continent, United States of America, Canada, the civilized populated areas are only in certain locations in this massive forest on this continent.
That's right.
There are highways, byways, back roads, gravel roads, dirt roads, super highways that connect one city to the next, one community to the next, but it doesn't, completely cover all of the forested areas. There's a massive amount of wilderness out here. There are parts inside the wilderness area, the forest, that no man has ever set foot in. Because
Absolutely.
The hunters go only so far into the forest. The hikers have their hiking trails. The people that live in the rural areas only use a portion of the forest.
Well, JL, what I'd like to do is, if I could, I want to ask you, can you describe this creature, if you would, and guesstimate how tall it was and the dimensions, if you can?
As I was going across the bridge, at an angle down from the bridge, a semi-truck trailer is 53 foot. Okay?
Okay.
So, from where I was at an angle looking down to where its location was probably somewhere around maybe 65 feet.
Okay.
Now, the color was brown, whitish brown, with reddish tint. It was red. Had reddish tint to the color of the hair. The hair was long, especially on the head part where it laid down. The color. There was fleshy part around the top where your eyebrow would be, and around the bottom of the eye, nose, was fleshy. It was like someone with a good tan.
Okay.
And then, of course, the hair, the rest of the hair just covered the face. And I'm talking broad, massively broad. I'm going to think this thing must have been at least 8 feet tall.
Wow.
I'm talking massive from shoulder to shoulder. The torso area was very, very wide. And its arms just hung straight down. I mean, it wouldn't move. It just stood there. But it was following me with its eyes and its face or its head as I was idling across the bridge looking down at it. But the rest of the body wasn't moving.
Man.
And I'm talking the legs of this thing, together, standing there together, almost like at attention, or like he was trying to be a tree or something, was massive. But I was mainly looking at mainly like maybe from a kneecap up. My stare moments was the head and shoulders and chest. And it looked intelligent. That's what's scary, man.
Oh, I can't imagine. Wow.
The eyes, when it spoke to me, it's like it spoke to me with its eyes telepathically. It looked intelligent. It just freaking, it went all through me. I'm having flashbacks now after, all this time thinking about it. While I was looking dead straight at it, its face, and it wasn't standing completely straight up. It was slightly bent over with the head, the face kind of propped up towards the bridge.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't standing straight up like a Marine at a salute.
Yes.
It was slightly bent over. But what little neck it may have had, it was able to lift its face, it was looking up at me. And I was looking at it.
Well, JL, as we've discussed before, that's not too many miles from where we actually hunt every year there at that WMA just northwest of Broken Bow. And we've had encounters we've discussed before ourselves around our camp. I can't imagine the fear that you felt, not only seeing this thing, but then how it looked intelligently, like you said, but then on top of that, how it communicated with you telepathically to say, don't mess with this. I mean, it's just amazing, this encounter that you had. And what would you say to folks who say, well, Bigfoot doesn't exist, that's just a hoax, or that's just folklore? What would you say to those folks?
I'll tell them this. I'll say this. These creatures are ancient. And I'm going to tell you another thing about these Bigfoot, Sasquatches, because that's a name that, through time has been given to them.
Right.
They were known about at the Native American Indian tribes of North America and Canada before America was settled.
Oh, definitely.
That's just a fact.
No, I believe you. There's documentation of that in California and a lot of the depictions on stone in various places.
And it's not like these creatures are hiding in some little town, or Dallas, Texas park. They're in the forest, people. They are in the forest. They've been there before America was even settled.
Absolutely.
Now, why is there more sightings and reports? Maybe because of technology. Maybe because, population. Maybe there's got to be a reason for it. There's better communications nowadays. Maybe there's more people that are willing to come forward.
I think you're right, JL. I think the fact that the technology has enabled so many people to speak to one another, and I think there's a wave, if you would, about people being more open and willing to share their story, having heard others share their story. And it's important, I think, for folks willing to share their story, knowing that they're helping others who may be on the fence about speaking about it. And as you would understand there's a lot of ridicule that goes along with that a lot of times, and that's the reason why many people will never share their story, and ultimately that's their decision, and I would respect that. Talk a little bit, if you would, JL, about how it's affected you in regards to, you mentioned before when we've talked about your family outings and how that has affected your participation sometimes in family outings.
Well, my family camps, up and around Broken Bow Lake. I know they're there. I'm not going to be spending the night in the forest.
Absolutely.
If it's daytime, I go up there around, with my family and around other people. I'm always going to be on the alert, watching and listening. But you're not going to catch me spending the night deep in the forest any place, if I can avoid it. And I tell you, it'd be best advisable, if you're going to get away from the populated areas and go into the forested areas, you better take something that's going to protect you.
I agree with that.
Take something that is going to protect you from just the normal animals that we're familiar with that can get aggressive. Because there's more than that in the forest. These Sasquatch, these Bigfoots, is the real deal. They're real. It's real. These creatures are real. You don't want to believe me? Then Google it. Go as far back as you can to where there were reports from the common people, any place, if it's back to the 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh, absolutely.
Or somewhere, find it where it's documented the Native American Indian tribes had discussed with, the fur trappers or whatever about these creatures. They're real, man. They're real. And they're dangerous.
No, I agree with that. Certainly there's a well-documented history in the Native American history about Bigfoot. Certainly, even Leif Erikson back in like the 900 A.D. in his diary mentioned hairy creatures he encountered. The documentation is there, and certainly folks who, like yourself, have witnessed these things know that they exist.
I didn't hear any noise coming from it.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any yells or yelling or anything. Now, I checked it out myself. Some people who claim that they've witnessed these things, they talk about big dark eyes. This one what I seen didn't have big dark eyes.
What it have? Was it like, could you see the whites of the eyes?
No, I didn't see any whites of the eyes. What it looked like to me was like an extreme, more real dark yellow. It's almost like real dark reddish yellow.
Oh, wow. So was there hair across the face, or could you see the face pretty clearly? I know you described the face earlier. So
around the eyes, around just the eyes, above the eyebrow line, and the nose, and just a little bit on the side of the nose. That's it. The flaky part.
Okay. Have you been over that stretch of road after that?
I have received loads that would have taken me over it, and I did go over it 2 more times later on. We're talking, between 2010 and 2017, okay? I did go over it twice, but not right away. But when I did, I didn't slow down for anything. I went as fast as I could. But at the same time, I'm looking. And if they told me that I had to be, going north, would route around. I would take the Indian Nation Turnpike, and then go over to McAllister and go down and cut across on 270 over the Pogo.
Right.
You know, I don't. You know, if your vehicle breaks down, it's late in the afternoon. You know, and I don't know if you're going to get a signal up there. No, not me. Mm-mm. I'm going to break down. I'd rather do it on the Indian Nation Turnpike. I ain't going over that mountain late in the afternoon. I won't even go over it in the daytime.
Yeah.
I will avoid it.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. That road, like I said, that's the same road that we travel from Tulsa going down to our camp, and that's a very winding road and dips and very, very thick wood lines that's just right there off of there's almost no shoulder before the trees start there. I mean, it's just that thick.
There's parts of that highway there is no shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, you might find some little place to pull into. You know, after I seen what I seen, I just soon round around it. Anybody who's listening, you can believe me. You can laugh it off. You can drink some wine. You can drink some beer. Do whatever. But what if I'm telling the truth? And I'm telling you the truth. And some of these guys that get together and have a few drinks and say, well, you know, let's just go see if we can find one of these. No, you're making a huge mistake. It's going to take professionals to document these things so other people will know. You better have some heavy firepower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your little old guns and your pistols ain't nothing.
That's absolutely right, and we never advocate as, you know, our team, you see one, you shoot one, but certainly you got to defend yourself, and if there's something aggressive towards you, then you defend yourself.
Well, look, we have our civilized world. There is millions and millions of acreage. I'm telling you, you don't know what's in the forest. The instant that I locked faces with this thing, it was intelligent. And that is frightening. That's scary. I don't know what its purpose or reason is. They've been around a long time. But there seems to be more and more and more people coming forward and saying they're getting closer, they're getting closer, and they're getting closer. They're getting more bold.
Right.
They're intelligent. They're not like your basic animals.
Well, they're the masters of the forest. Their purpose and why they exist is certainly up for debate, and certainly there's a lot of theories out there from the Nephilim to it's just a remnant hominid to a lot of other things. In the end, the fact is no one really knows. It's almost beside the point because ultimately it's folks who see these things that need answers and want answers. And our show, you know, we provide, or try to at least provide, as many answers as we can, but ultimately what the therapy is, because like you said, it affects people to the core, is basically talking about it. Talking about it helps, and being with like-minded people helps, and sharing their stories. And so what you're doing, sharing your story, JL, is helping so many other folks who have had encounters, and maybe they've told their story, but maybe they haven't. Is therapy for them, because it is such a traumatic event in a lot of people's lives. Sharing with others helps in so many ways. Well, JL, thank you so much for calling in and for sharing your story. It's truly, truly an amazing story, a very frightening story, and I can't thank you enough for trusting us to share your story with our audience, our listeners, and hopefully folks out there maybe that's had an encounter that's wondering, well, should I call? Absolutely. We respect all calls. If you've had an encounter, please don't hesitate to call us. It may take a couple weeks. We get a lot of calls every day, but please do so. But again, I want to thank you, JL, for calling in, and fellow Oklahoman, and I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Absolutely.